I tried my best to look cute for you guys today. So today I wanted to talk about something actually kind of interesting, and that is my treatment. Now, you guys might not know this, but I was part of a clinical trial at the world's largest research hospital called the National Institute of Health. And just recently on Discovery Channel, there was a documentary hosted by Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory. He made a documentary about the National Institute of Health and how the National Institute of Health conducts all of these first-in-human trials for a plethora of rare diseases and incurable cancers.
The only way that you can really know whether something works is to test it in humans.
Everyone who works here has a goal, trying to solve the unsolvable.
We have a mandate to create tomorrow's medicine.
It is their last hope for a cure.
This still has high risk, but it also has high benefit.
Look at that. Life.
It's a pretty amazing place because it's 100% government funded. All of the treatments that are being performed at NIH are experimental, and the scientists and researchers work one-on-one with the patients in these experimental trials. Basically, the people that sign up for a clinical trial at NIH are contributing to science and are contributing to the well-being and health of all future people. The first case of radiation being used to treat a tumor was at NIH. The modern treatment of HIV was developed at NIH, and several other amazing, miraculous discoveries have been made in this hospital. It is a historic, amazing, incredible place where they save people's lives, and the people that undergo these treatments have to sign a waiver saying that they basically agree to being part of a research study and to have these doctors and researchers use drugs on you that may not be FDA approved, or they're not sure if it's going to work, but if it does, it can become part of a standard treatment that will then be used in hospitals worldwide. So basically, as a patient at NIH, you are putting your life kind of on the line for the possibility of a cure or for a better treatment that will benefit thousands of other people in the future, which I thought was amazing. When I first signed up, they had me sign like all these waivers saying like this is completely voluntary, you could stop at any moment, like if at any point you feel like this is not right for you. And it was really crazy being at a government hospital. Actually, the room where I was being treated was also a room where like one of Obama's assistants was being treated. Like basically this is a hospital where like all the government officials go. I'll insert some clips for you guys. So my regular doctor that was treating me at Smilo Cancer Center in New Haven, when he looked at my case and the severity of it, he said, I want to get you into the NIH right away because they have a new research trial that has a really, really good success rate, and I think that you could benefit from it. As soon as he said this, I was like, hell yes. I did not care. This was a freaking research trial. I didn't care about any of that. I was just like, get me in. I want to be healed. So about 3 days later, I got a phone call from NIH, and NIH is in Bethesda, Maryland, which is about 5-6 hours away from Connecticut. So I made an appointment with them for the following Tuesday. I went in on a Tuesday. I got like a ton of blood tests done. I had an EKG done. I had a chest x-ray. I had an MRI. I had a bone marrow biopsy done again. And pretty much when I sat down with the doctors at NIH that day, they told me like, you definitely have severe aplastic anemia. We want to get you in today. So that day, that very same day, I was admitted into NIH Building 10, and I got my own room. And I got hooked up and ready to go, and they were like, we're gonna start treatment like right away. So that was really, really exciting, and also slightly nerve-wracking because I got this big giant packet of information, and they told me to read through everything, and they wanted to make sure I understood all of the possible risks of the experimental drug that they would be using on me. So that was definitely the scariest fucking part of the entire thing, was just like reading through it and reading all of the side effects and possible risks of the treatment. Now, what was also really cool is that I got to meet two doctors, Dr. Townsley and Dr. Neil Young. Dr. Neil Young is the doctor who developed the treatment for this disease about 20, 30 years ago. Before he developed the treatment, the fatality rate for this disease was almost always 100%. And this disease affects a lot of young people for some reason. So he dedicated his life to developing a treatment to save people, and he has saved thousands of people. And now the researchers at NIH are trying to tweak and alter that treatment to make it more successful, and they're hoping to get the remission rate up to like 100%. So I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about the treatment that I'm on, if I can find the fucking paper in the midst of all of these freaking papers. So basically I got this sheet and it just says, we invite you to take part in a research study at the National Institute of Health. First, we want you to know that taking part in NIH research is entirely voluntary. You may choose not to take part and you may withdraw from the study at any time. In either case, you will not lose any benefits to which you are otherwise entitled. However, to receive care at the NIH, you must be taking part in a study or be under evaluation for study participation. Okay, well, I'm gonna try to condense this as much as possible because I know a lot of you guys are probably not interested in like medical stuff, but I find it really, really fascinating. So part of my treatment is HATG, which is horse ATG. What that basically means is they inject me over the course of 4 days with horse antibodies. It's kind of like chemotherapy, but it's different. What it does is it shuts down your entire immune system. It's like a reboot button. Like, imagine that your body is a computer with a virus on it, and they shut it down, reboot it, wipe the entire hard drive, then turn it back on and cross their fingers and hope that it works. So over the course of 4 days, I was hooked up to a giant bag of horse protein. It looked like water and I would look at it and I would look at my IV and I'd be like, this is not right. This is not supposed to be happening. Like, literally, if you would have told New York City Stephanie, who was drinking her Prosecco and enjoying life in New York City, that months from now she would be sitting at the National Institute of Health being pumped full of horse proteins, she would have been like, bullshit. It was honestly surreal just sitting there and getting that done. And after the ATG treatment is done, you then continue a treatment plan for about a year or 2 years, depending on how well you respond. And the treatment is called immunosuppressive therapy, and it involves taking a drug called cyclosporin. Cyclosporin has been used for many years and in thousands of patients to block rejection of a bone marrow or organ transplantation. It's also been administered in large numbers to patients with aplastic anemia. It has increased the response of ATG. The combination of ATG and cyclosporin is now standard treatments for patients with severe aplastic anemia. About 2/3 of patients are expected to respond to this combined therapy, meaning that they no longer require transfusions and are no longer susceptible to infections. Fingers crossed! And I'll be taking it between 6 months to 18 months, and they're gonna monitor how much they give me, because I guess if they give you too much of a high dose, you get like really, really unpleasant side effects. The ATG and the cyclosporin are not experimental. They are FDA approved for the treatment of severe aplastic anemia, but I was given one experimental drug called L-Trombopag, which has previously been used in people with platelet disorders, but for the first time it is being used in combination with all of these other drugs because they're hoping it's going to boost your platelet counts. And your platelets are one of the things that are affected when you have aplastic anemia, and that means excessive bleeding. You could die from brain bleeding. So that is why I require transfusions all the time, because my platelets are like non-existent. So the L-Trombopag is supposed to stimulate platelet counts and hopefully improve the remission rate. So the L-Trombopag has some risks, and here are some of the risks. Severe rash, liver problems, high platelet counts, and higher risk for blood clots. So wait a minute, I'm like at a risk for blood clots and bleeding? I want to thank my blood for being able to multitask so fabulously in order to try and kill me.
Anemia, nausea, fatigue, dizziness, fever, infection, headache, pain in arms, skin redness, abnormal liver function, small vessel problems that result in kidney failure.
And actually, even though this is the experimental drug, it has the least amount of side effects, which is great. The ATG, the horse proteins, also have some serious side effects.
Such as anaphylaxis, severe lung injury, cardiac failure, and pulmonary edema, none of which I got.
I had them give me some anti-anxiety medicine my first day because I was so fucking scared. I was like hooked up to this thing and I was just like waiting for anaphylaxis. I was like, oh my god. Because they told me, they're like, some people react very, very badly to the horse protein. Because, you know, they're horse proteins. They're not supposed to be inside of you. Thankfully, I didn't have the worst side effects. I did have side effects, but they weren't that bad. Allergic reactions, serum sickness, which I didn't get. Thank you, Jesus. Decrease in blood counts, which did happen to me. I had to have so so many blood transfusions while I was going through treatment. It was like insane. They were like carrying bags of blood into the room and like pumping me full of them. And you know, infection, low platelet, low white blood cells, rashes, which are in 27% of people. I didn't get a rash. I only got a little tiny rash on my knee, and I was really happy about that. I was really proud of myself. Actually, the doctors told me I was their star patient because I had like minimal side effects from the ATG, which like makes me feel like I'm part unicorn. And then cyclosporine. This stuff is awful, awful. Out of all the drugs I've taken, this one is my least favorite. I mean, I don't really have a favorite. When used at high doses in transplant patients, cyclosporine may be associated with an increased risk of cancer, especially lymphoma, increased risk of infection, blindness, kidney failure, liver failure, seizures, increased blood pressure, and other side effects of cyclosporine can be unpleasant but rarely require stopping the medication. These include hair growth on the face, chest, and limbs, growth of gum tissue, tingling in your fingertips, development of tremors. I've gotten all of these basically. Decreased appetite, dizziness, rash, nausea, sore throat, chest pain, congestion, night sweats, chills, and or vomiting. I think the one that freaked me out the most was blindness. My liver did start to have some issues when I started my treatment, and they actually had to stop the treatment for 7 days because my liver enzymes shot up to like 6 times the normal amount, and had that continued, my liver would have failed. So they took me off of the treatment, let my liver simmer down a little bit, but my liver actually did end up improving, so that's good. That like was a huge relief. So I was at NIH for about 3 weeks, and the doctors, nurses were incredible. I made a couple of friends. Actually, one of my friends received a bone marrow transplant, and he'd already been through the treatment twice and it didn't work for him, so he was in there for a bone marrow transplant. It was an experimental bone marrow transplant, and it was a first in human situation, and he's doing remarkably well, which is amazing. And he was so calm, so collected, and so brave that he was really an inspiration to me. If you guys are wondering whether I was worried about being a placebo or anything like that, it is not the case at all. They tell you exactly what treatment you're going to be getting. They tell you exactly what drugs you're getting. None of it's placebo, none of that. They're very, very upfront and honest with you about success rate, prognosis, risks, and everything. They read through every single possible risk with you so you know what you're getting yourself into. One thing I did find comfort in is that I wasn't actually the first in human trial for this clinical trial. I was like number 150 for this trial, so people before me had received this treatment, and a lot of them did really, really well and didn't require a bone marrow transplant afterwards. So that gave me peace of mind going into it, and I'm glad I wasn't number 1 in the trial, because then I probably would have been freaking out way more. The doctors are giving this treatment about 6 months to work, and if it doesn't work, I will be needing a bone marrow transplant. This treatment doesn't cure aplastic anemia, it only puts you into remission, and that takes sometimes years. And even when you are in remission, there is a pretty, not big, but there is a moderate risk that you will relapse. And someone explained it really nicely in one of the support groups that I'm in, that when you go into remission, aplastic anemia is always like that monster in your closet. You always live with that little bit of fear that it might come back, and that terrifies me. And in a way, it makes me want to have a bone marrow transplant, because then I would be deemed cured. But because there are so many risks associated with a bone marrow transplant, and this has less risks than that, so that is why my doctors have chosen to go down this road instead of a bone marrow transplant. Also, I don't have a perfect sibling match, so that would also make bone marrow transplant riskier for me. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed the little information and the knowledge that I have spread. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!